Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Raw Law Unfiltered with your host, the DUI Guy Plus. Today, we are going to be tackling a very sensitive topic that is on everybody's mind, apparently, as of late, as I've seen it trending on and off on Twitter, trying to figure out whether or not COVID-19 vaccine and deaths are all kind of related in the same pool. Now, before I begin, one caveat, okay? I know some of you were like, no, DUI guy, not you too. Like, subscribe to this crazy, conspiracy theory of da 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 da. I don't. And I'll explain why in a moment. But essentially, the whole COVID 19 vaccine death issue boils down to one very simple question. Okay. And the question is of negligence. Can Moderna, Pfizer, and whatever that third one is that pretty much no one is getting since they've discovered Johnson and Johnson, since they've discovered a direct link between women getting like blood clots and death. I believe there's like 8 women who died in like 2020, 2021. So Johnson and Johnson, everyone's like terrified of getting. But Moderna and Pfizer, you know, the legal question is, can they be held for negligence if their vaccine causes you some type of damages? Now, before we get into the federal laws, the basic question that you have to ask yourselves is, what are the 4 elements of negligence? Well, that's easy: duty, breach, causation, and damages. Now, duty is fairly easy to prove. You know, Pfizer, Moderna owe a duty not to give you a faulty vaccine in a perfect universe. Again, this is not exactly the law, but I'm getting there. Just listen. Do they owe you a duty? Probably. Probably, definitely, almost definitely owe you a duty not to like slaughter you with faulty machinery, faulty vaccines. Did they breach that duty? Well, let's say you suffered the harm. So obviously the duty has been breached. But now we get to causation, right? Causation. We'll come back to it in just a second. Damages also fairly easy to prove. You suffered harm, and as a result, you want compensation for your injuries. But causation, see, correlation and causation are oftentimes lumped into the same category, and they are not the same. Causation is extremely difficult to prove, and causation is going to be the difference between you walking away with a settlement or a verdict or and $0, basically, on one end versus the other. The problem with these companies is that our human bodies are fickle at the end of the day. And we, even before COVID 19, we have heard of, I mean, just do a basic Google search. How many people have died before the age of 30, before the age of 35, before the age of 40 of random strokes, heart attacks, complete natural causes, sudden deaths, unexpected deaths. Now, people like drama. People like dramatic effect. You know, this whole died suddenly. You saw it in the thumbnail, probably on this side. Died suddenly. People die suddenly all the time, every day, for various different reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the vaccine. But hey, fear of missing out. This is the latest trend. Everyone's getting the vaccine. You got the anti-vaxxers raising ire. You got the pro-vaxxers raising ire for the anti-vaxxers who are not getting the vaccines. And everybody wants to point the finger and say, look, your vaccine is killing us and vice versa, right? You not getting the vaccine is killing us. It's another way for the country and the higher up elites to basically control the population and keep them dumb, keep them busy fighting amongst themselves so they don't have to worry about what's going on up there and all the new bullshit that they're feeding your way. Well, the bottom line is the federal government intervened. The federal government intervened a month before like all the shutdowns went global. Like when the feds knew that shutdowns were imminent, right? They knew before the rest of the country even began shutting down. This is what happened, okay? The government passed A very, very, very interesting law. They basically said, well, let's talk about it. They basically said you cannot sue Pfizer or Moderna if you have severe COVID vaccine side effects. The government likely will not compensate you for damages either. This is called the PrEP Act. Excuse me, the PrEP Act. And under it, companies like Pfizer and Moderna have total immunity from liability if something unintentionally, that's the key word, unintentionally goes wrong. Now, if they screw something up, they're on the hook no matter what. Intentional conduct, intentional screw up, they're on the hook no matter what. However, unintentional screw ups, they have no liability if something goes wrong with their vaccines. There is a little known program which provides benefits to people if they can prove that they suffered a serious injury from the vaccine, but it rarely pays. And it has paid it just in 29 claims, which is about 6% in the last 10 years. So this is even pre COVID, all vaccines. This applies to all vaccines. If you experience severe side effects after getting a COVID vaccine, lawyers tell CNBC that there is basically no one to blame in the US court of law. The federal government has granted companies like Pfizer and Moderna immunity from liability if something unintentionally goes wrong with their vaccines. It is very rare for a blanket immunity law to be passed, said Raj Dunn, a Dallas labor and employment attorney. But pharmaceutical companies typically aren't offered much liability protection under the law. For example, you can't sue the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, for authorizing a vaccine for emergency use, nor can you hold your employer accountable if they mandate inoculation as a condition of employment. So if your employer says you want to work here, get the vaccine, you get it, you suffer something, you can't then turn around and sue the employer. You can't sue the FDA for approving it, and you can't sue Pfizer or Moderna for the damages that you suffered. Now, Congress does have a fund specifically to help cover lost wages and out of pocket medical expenses for people who have been irreparably harmed. That's a big word, basically, irreparably, right? Cannot be repaired. The damages are permanent, such as death or maybe paralysis, things like that, that cannot be reversed by a covered countermeasure, such as a vaccine. But it is difficult to use and rarely pays. And attorneys say it compensated less than 6%. I mean, that is tiny, tiny. Imagine 6 out of 100 people who have filed this claim have actually succeeded in winning. That's extremely, extremely small. And that's in the last 10 years. So the immunity to lawsuits, here's what happened. In February of 2020, okay, 1 month, just a couple of weeks even before the shutdowns began countrywide in the United States and worldwide even, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Alex Azar, invoked the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. This is PrEP, P-R-E-P. The 2005 law empowers the Health and Human Services Secretary to provide legal protection to companies making or distributing critical medical supplies, such as vaccines and treatments, unless there's willful misconduct by the company. Now, so two things, right? Well, and this protection lasts until 2024. So, two things right here. Okay. Number one, intentional conduct. There it is again, willful misconduct. If there's willfulness on the part of the company, which is extremely rare, but it is going to happen from time to time. If there's willful conduct on the part of the company, you can sue and probably get compensation. Okay. Now that's why 6% of the time it's successful. However, this is interesting. These protections only last, as you saw, until 2024. There it is. It's on your screen right now. If you're just listening, you don't know what I'm doing. I'm circling this portion of the text. This protection lasts until 2024 only. So what does that mean? That means that PrEP will eventually expire, presumably on December 31st of this year. And now the floodgates may or may not, subject to other federal laws, or again, basic negligence principles, because you can't just sue because they did everything right and your body gave in because you haven't been taking care of it for the last 15 years, eating junk food, not exercising, and the COVID vaccine kills you. You know what? Probably wasn't COVID that killed you in the first place. Have you checked that? So that's the problem. And people like to latch on to this teat that's like, like I'm trying to suck the government for everything it's got because it forced this vaccine on me and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is, guess what? Maybe it wasn't the vaccine. Have you thought about that? Causation versus correlation. Because had you not gotten the vaccine, the results may or may not have been exactly the same. The date of death, the time of death, the second of death would have been exactly the same, whether or not the vaccine was coursing through your veins or not. That is the biggest problem with this died suddenly fiasco. Okay. But it's only going to last until the end of this year, or I don't know, maybe at the end of next year. But it says it lasts only until 2024. So presumably, sometime next year, you can start coming after these people. That means that for the next year, these companies cannot be sued for money damages in court over injuries related to the administration or use of products to treat or protect against COVID. Now, they declined an interview. We don't care. A big reason for this, one of the lawyers thinks, for this unprecedented protection has to do with the expedited timeline because they needed the vaccines now. At the time, in February, March 2020, they were trying to figure out how to get the vaccines rolling out as quickly as possible to protect as many people as possible so we can end the deaths, we can end the lockdown, we can end the shutdown, we can open up the hospitals, have more beds, etc., etc., etc. When the government said, we want you to develop this 4 or 5 times faster than you normally do, most likely the manufacturers said to the government, we'll do it, but we want a protection from multi-million-dollar lawsuits. And the government was like, here you go. Because it's very rare for blanket immunity laws to be passed like this. They normally are not afforded this type of protection. That is intense. Judges and prosecutors are pretty much the only two people I can think of off the top of my head who are blanket immune from doing their job on a daily basis. Judges, I almost have never seen, other than like on a ruling, like you made a ruling and I want to sue you. I'm suing not you, I'm suing the decision that you made and I want it overruled. That happens all the time. But suing the judge for monetary damages for harm suffered by you, they have blanket immunity, pretty much. Similarly with prosecutors, very rarely are prosecutors brought forth to the table. The conduct has to be extremely outside of the scope and outside of the purview of the job that they are doing. Now, the quickest vaccine ever developed was for mumps. It took 4 years, and that was licensed like 60 years ago almost, 1967, 55 years ago. Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine was developed and cleared for emergency use in just 8 months. This has been a fact that fueled public mistrust of the coronavirus inoculation in the US. I mean, it's natural. It makes sense. Why do we have so many anti-vaxxers now more than ever? Because when you're trying to streamline and steamroll the population with something that is brand new, we're making it right now, we're doing it for, altruistic purposes, you're going to have a bunch of people saying, no, I don't trust the government. I distrust the government. I'm one of those folks. Now, I'm vaccinated. Why? Because I like to travel. And it's kind of really freaking difficult to travel if you're not vaccinated. I wouldn't be able to go into court, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. I needed to go to court. I needed to go into government entities. So I had no choice. So I got the vaccine. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I don't know if I ever talked about it. To me, it's not a big deal. To you, you might be like, you're dead to me, DUI guy. So be it. It is what it is. I don't care. The fact that fueled public mistrust, right? So roughly 4 in 10 Americans say they would definitely or probably not get vaccinated, according to some survey done 3 years ago. While this is lower than it was 2 months ago, which is like, again, September of 2020. This is all from 2020. But it's important because this answers all all these questions that people are having right now, or they're not even really questions, they're more like dramatic, outbursts. Oh, this person died. It must be, were they vaccinated? Yes. Oh, there was definitely the vaccine then. Chalk it up to death by COVID vaccine. Come on. Seriously? Get fucking real. All right. But drug makers like Pfizer continue, or sorry, did I skip? Yeah. While this is lower than it was, yeah. Okay. But drug makers like Pfizer continue to reassure the public no shortcuts have been taken. Okay. Whatever. This is a vaccine developed without cutting corners. I don't know if I believe any of it, but hey, money talks, bullshit walks. The legal immunity granted to pharmaceutical companies doesn't just guard them against lawsuits. Dunn said it helps lower the cost of immunizations, obviously, because there's something called a self-insurance, right? Self-insurance policy. You can take out an insurance policy and have someone else cover you, or you can self-insure. And how do you do that? You raise the prices of the product that you are selling. Okay. Very simple. If I can sell this for $2, right? Like in this case, it's to the government, but let's say I'm selling it to you. If I can sell this to you for $2, like for example, if you know the Ford Pinto story, the one of the most fascinating car stories in the history of the universe, I think. The 1967, I think actually, it was the 1967 Ford Pinto. Ford releases a car, by definition, a death trap. Like literally in the definition, the fuel tank was so close to the rear and so exposed with almost no metallic covering and undergarment, essentially, for the vehicle, that at the slightest tap, like 30-mile-an-hour rear impact, the car would literally explode and turn into a fireball of death. Okay? Now, you might think like, oh, it was an error. It was an engineering error. Cars were new back then. They did know. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, they knew. They knew. The engineers came to Ford and said, look, for 10 extra dollars or something, it was extremely cheap. Like 10 extra dollars, you can fix this. You can add an extra metallic protection, but it'll cost $10 extra. Now, Ford didn't look at it that way. It said, how many cars are we manufacturing? 11 million? Oh, so you're asking for a $110 million addition to the vehicle. No, thank you. Let's go ahead without it. And instead, they calculated how many deaths do we anticipate will occur as a result of how many potential car accidents over the roads in America over the next like 10, 15 years. Can you imagine? Can you imagine doing that math? Like, what costs more, a hunk of metal, or how many human lives is this gonna cost us monetarily? And they literally came to the conclusion that it's gonna cost us less to kill X number of people than to invest money into this Ford Pinto. Absolutely mind-boggling. True story. Look it up. It's fascinating. So kind of like the same thing, potentially happening here, but I don't know. I don't know. Does it? I don't know. Government, this is called self-insurance. You raise the price, which raises the price of the product, which raises the price that you have to pay government, but it provides self-insurance. But if, and this is what happened here, the government gave this layer of protection to Pfizer and Moderna and said, look, you're basically immune for the time being. No matter what happens, you're good to go until you figured your shit out or whatever, right? We can lower the price of the product. And now the government's winning. The companies are winning. The only people potentially losing are the human guinea pig subjects, right? I waited until like a bunch of people got it so that I know like which one to get. And, I wasn't like front line. I mean, if I was a doctor, I probably would, but I'm a lawyer. So I was kind of like, I was group B, group C, whatever. I don't remember. I got it in April, I think, of 2021. So by then, everybody was like, oh, get the Pfizer. There's less trauma with it. There's less headaches. Like it was a little weird for like 10 hours. I had like hot flashes and stuff like that with the first one. Second one was a lot easier. But yeah, It's all a conspiracy theory. If you if you believe that the government is like trying to put things in you, that's your prerogative. You do you. Look, I'm not here to tell you don't believe the things in your head. I'm just saying I don't fucking believe them. That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. So the government doesn't want people suing the companies making the COVID vaccine, because then the manufacturers would probably charge the government a higher price per dose, obviously. Pfizer, okay. Is anyone liable? Now remember, vaccine manufacturers are not the ones approving their product for mass distribution. That's the job of the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA. Now that begs the question, can you sue the US government? Now, if you can't sue Moderna and Pfizer, can you sue the US government if you have an extraordinarily bad reaction to the vaccine? And again, the answer is no. You cannot sue the FDA for approving or disapproving a drug, said Dorit Rice, a professor at the University of California, Hastings College of Law. That's part of its sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity comes from the king. It's basically blanket immunity, same thing. Blanket immunity, sovereign immunity, absolute immunity, they're all synonyms, referring to British law before the American Revolution. You couldn't sue the king for a king's decision. So America has sovereign immunity, and each state has sovereign immunity. There are limited exceptions, but Dunn said he doesn't think they provide a viable legal path to hold the federal government responsible for a COVID vaccine injury. Bringing workers back to the office in a post-COVID world, this is again end of 2020, beginning of 2021, also carried with it a heightened fear of liability for employers. Lawyers across the country say their corporate clients are reaching out to them to ask whether they can require employees to get immunized. And Dunn's clients, who run businesses serving customers in person or on site, are most interested in mandating a COVID vaccine for staff. Now, for those of you asking just out of curiosity, I'm sure you're wondering, like, did DUI guy make all his employees get the vaccine, I wonder, since he got it? The answer is no. I did not. I was not one of the employers that mandated it for my employees, even though I had every right to do so. Why? I didn't do it. Two reasons. Number one, I don't want to be involved in that unless I absolutely have to. Number two, I think every single one of them got it anyway, so I never even had to answer that question. Even in a hypothetical, well, what would you do, DUI guy, if I don't know? I have no idea. That question has never been posed to me. All my employees got it because they all need to be going to court, and they all need it or for their own purposes. So every single one of my employees is vaccinated, also by choice, not by force. Maybe by force of them having to go to court, but again, very doubtful. You'll have to ask them. I can't speak for all of them. They view it as a selling point, said Dunn. It's particularly important for restaurants, bars, gyms, salons, if you all remember this. My clients in that segment of the service of industry are looking hard at making it mandatory as a sales point to their customers. And that makes sense, especially if you have people coming in and out constantly. You kind of want your employees to be vaccinated at the time when it was at its peak, right? Makes sense. While this is part of a public relations tactic, a PR tactic, it is legally within an employer's rights to impose such a requirement. Requiring a vaccine is a health and safety work rule, and employers can do that, said Rice. There are a few notable exceptions. If a workforce is unionized, the collective bargaining agreement may require negotiating with the union before mandating a vaccine. Anti-discrimination laws provide some protections as well. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, this is the ADA, workers who do not want to be vaccinated for medical reasons are eligible for an exemption. If taking the vaccine is a violation of a sincerely held religious belief, is another example, in violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, would potentially provide a way to opt out of that, despite the fact of being mandatory. Should none of these exceptions apply, employees may have some legal recourse if they suffer debilitating side effects following a work-mandated COVID inoculation. Now, here it is. Attorneys say claims would most likely be routed through workers' comp and treated as an on the job injury. That's kind of like a loophole to get around the whole fact of I can't sue Pfizer, I can't sue Moderna, I can't sue the government, I can't sue the FDA, which is part of the government, I can't sue, health, the Secretary of Health. I can't sue my employer, so I'm just going to go through workman's comp. It's kind of like a back door to the whole thing. So, but there are significant limits and caps on damages an employee can recover, obviously, and it would be damages would be likely difficult to prove. Now, mandatory vaccine protocols may not happen until the FDA formally approves the vaccines and grants Pfizer and biotech or Moderna a license to sell them, which will take several more months, which I think we're already past all of that. And the emergency use authorization is not a license. It's not a blanket license to do it. It's not a carte blanche, do what you will. There's legal question as to whether you can mandate an emergency observation. And that language in the act is somewhat unclear. It may have been litigated some sense. $50,000 a year. Now, the government has created a way for people to recover some damages should something go wrong following immunization. In addition to the legal immunity, the PrEP Act established the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, also known as the CICP, which provides benefits to eligible individuals who suffer serious injury from one of the protected companies. The little-known government program has been around for a decade, and it is managed by an agency under the HHS. This fund typically only deals with vaccines you probably would never get, like the H1N1 and anthrax vaccines. If a case for compensation through the CICP is successful, you get up to $50K a year in unreimbursed lost wages and out-of-pocket medical expenses. So notice, you do not get compensation for your injury, and it is limited to a dollar for dollar what you have spent on lost wages and out-of-pocket medical expenses. So for not working, however much you lost, you'll get that back dollar for dollar. And then all your medical expenses, you'll get back dollar for dollar. You do not get pain and suffering. You do not get pain and suffering. And that's where usually the big chunk of the pie is located. It won't cover any legal fees or anything to compensate for pain and suffering. There it is. It is also capped at the death benefit of $370,376, which is the most a surviving family member receives in the event that a COVID vaccine proves to be fatal. And again, that is an enormously low number, no matter the age of the patient, if you will, because that's like a third of a mil. You can burn through that in like a year. Most people, it may last, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. If you're being extremely conservative, maybe 6 or 7, but that's nothing. And especially if you have like a family of 5 or 6, you can easily burn through that in probably like a year. Experts specializing in vaccine law say it is difficult to navigate. This government compensation program is very hard to use, said Rice. The bar for compensation is very high. Also worrisome to some vaccine injury lawyers is that the fact that CICP has rejected a majority of the compensation requests made since the program began 10 years ago. Of the 499 claims filed, remember, this is the 6 out of 499, 6%, out of the 499, they only compensated 29 claims totaling more than $6 million. People who are harmed by a COVID vaccine deserve to be compensated fast and generously, if you can prove it. The PrEP Act does not do that. And again, I think it kind of boils down to, the fact that it's so difficult to prove causation. Because it's one thing if you're like healthy, you get the vaccine, boom, you die. Causation is definitely, like you died the same day, the next day is what I mean, right? Causation there, even though may still be tangential, obviously is a lot stronger if it's been a year and a half and you die suddenly of a heart attack. That's huge. That's a huge difference. And again, what was the cause? I mean, were you having hot flashes after the vaccine, which caused your body temperature to rise, which caused a blood clot, which caused this, which caused which caused ended up in you having a stroke, and then you die. Now that's a lot more easier to prove at that point. You see the difference? David Carney, vice president of Vaccine Bar Association. I don't even know that was a thing, bro. Okay. David Carney, vice president of the Vaccine Bar Association, said the CICP might deny a claim for a variety of reasons. One reason might be that the medical records don't support a claim, obviously, like we were talking about. He regularly deals with the vaccine injury cases. We have to litigate a lot of very complex issues and provide a medical basis for why the injury occurred. Proving an injury was a direct result of the COVID vaccine could be difficult. It's not as simple as saying, hey, I got COVID treatment and now I have an injury. There's a lot of burden of proof. And the burden of proof is on you, the injured party. Now, it's preponderance of the evidence in the majority of these cases, but it's still your burden. And if you don't prove it, you don't get compensation. And it may be a different standard of proof under the PrEP Act and the CICP. That's something worth looking into. There's also a strict 1-year statute, meaning all claims have to be filed within 12 months of receiving the vaccine. I mean, isn't that beautiful? So if you suffer injury at the 12-month and 1-day mark, you're screwed. The CICP does not cover you by definition, by law. People who are harmed by a COVID vaccine deserve to be compensated fast and generously, as we said. Lawyers tell CNBC that it would make more sense for COVID vaccine injuries to instead be routed through another program under the HHS called the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, or NVICP. They handle claims for 16 routine vaccines, known colloquially as Vaccine Court. The program paid on about 70% of petitions adjudicated by the court from 06 to 18. This is all pre-COVID. So that's another avenue for compensation. And since it began considering claims in 1988, the VICP has paid approximately $4.4 billion in total compensation, which dwarfs, obviously, the CICP's roughly $6 million benefits, which is nothing. I mean, $6 million to $4 billion. That's not even, that's like 100 to 1 almost. The VICP also gives you more time to file your claim. You have 3 years from the date of the first symptoms appearing to file for compensation. The VICP allows for recovery of pain and suffering, attorney's fees, along with medical expenses and lost wages, if any, said Michael Maxwell, a lawyer who practices in the area of business litigation and personal injury law. And under the CICP, it's only lost wages and out-of-pocket medical expenses. That's it, unless there's a death. The COVID-19 vaccines, however, are not on the list of eligible vaccines. Well, that's phenomenal. So the VICP, everything I read about the VICP is null and void because they don't apply to COVID-19 vaccines. Wow, that's lovely. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Rice said the best fix would be to change the VICP's rulebook, add COVID to the list of covered inoculations, and that will require legislative change, and hopefully that change will happen. I don't know if it happened since this article was written. It may have. I don't know. We are free to look it up, I suppose. Now, I've been paying attention in starring your questions. So let's go ahead and address some of your questions. I think Amy is here too, is she not? Hi, Amy. I miss you. Hopefully, I'll be in LA soon. Again, back. I have jury trials, you guys. I have jury trials scheduled pretty much every week, starting the week of February 3rd. So not this week, but the next week. I have a jury trial scheduled every single week until like the 3rd week of June. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong. I miss trials so much. I haven't had a trial since like September 15th or 16th or something. It's something crazy. So very, very excited to be back in action. I'm looking for her. I could have sworn I saw. There she is. She said, this was a while ago. This is before I went live. This is like a couple hours ago. I think this is going to be a controversial chat, and I'm here for it. Oh, and you already saw that it was. You already saw that it was. And Sam, it all depends. It all depends. If these cases go to trial, I'm going to have more videos, presumably, unless something goes wrong, and the clerk is like, "I'm sorry, I cannot retrieve the video." I'm waiting for that day to happen when I have like the most phenomenal trial, when I just cream the prosecutor, I like obliterate him out of existence. And then I'm like, yes, I can't wait to publish this, and my viewers are gonna love this shit. And I asked the clerk, and she's like, sorry, the jam system wasn't working that day, so we can't get you a copy of the tape. Like I'm waiting for that to happen. But I think it's not gonna happen, just because people are generous and not stupid. So here we go. Aw, she says, I miss you too, my friend. To date, you are the only YouTuber that made me blush live on air, for the record. That was impressive. Okay. Julie Gibson. All right. She says, I was in medical malpractice. That's what med-mal stands for over 20 years. And folks would sue I'm guessing a gastroenterologist, for a perforation during a colonoscopy, a complication on the pre-operation that they sign. So in every procedure, there's obvious risks involved. There is absolutely no guarantee that a procedure is not going to go wrong and hurt you and or kill you, especially when it's a voluntary procedure, or it's a procedure that you feel that's not so voluntary, but dying from like an anal polyp versus doing a colonoscopy and maybe risking a tear. I think I would risk the tear, because the polyp may explode, can cause cancer, etc., etc. So a perforation during a colonoscopy, which is a normal complication, which you sign off like on the dotted line, and then they're like, hey, I want to sue them for this. People just are so trigger happy in the United States. They want to sue everyone for everything all the time. Because like I remember when I first started practicing, I had the blinders on too. I'm no stranger to this stuff. People were coming my way and going like, Larry, I want to sue them for this. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a $10 million case. And I look at it, I'm like, that's like a $15,000 recovery maximum. So everybody has these like, eyeballs, like they see a case and they think like they're going to become multimillionaires because, the sugar packet had a bug in it. Oh my God, be still my heart. Come on, get over yourselves. M169. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times, there's a time and place for everything. And as Chef from South Park said, it's called college, right? No, there is a time and place for everything. And that is when the facts and the injury and the damages are all in unison, right? When you are shot and killed by a police officer, that can be worth at least $2-3 million if you were not the instigator, if you were in the right, if the police officer was in the wrong. For example, your child drowns in a pool that didn't have sufficient lifeguards. That is absolutely wrongful death claim for compensation, depending on the facts. You fall off a bike and you crack your skull open. Maybe that was user error. Maybe you're not entitled to compensation, nor is your family, of course, because you can't sue. You're dead. But if you were wearing a helmet and the helmet cracked and it was defective, even though it was brand new out of the box, you see where I'm going with this, right? Every set of facts is going to have its own liability, potential for liability, etc. I hope you guys are enjoying the shorts, by the way. One of my shorts, I'm not talking about the ones you wear, by the way, but my short videos on my YouTube channel, go check them out if you haven't already. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel also while I'm at it. So the shorts one of them went viral, like legit viral. It has like 800,000 views in like a week. It's literally insane. It's literally insane. It came out January, like 10 days ago. It was like at 40,000 views like last week. And oh wait, did I say 800,000? I meant 800,000 in the last 2 days. It's a 1.2 million views. Literally Insane. Insane. Um, M169 says, Larry, you need to be aware every vaccine on the childhood schedule, which includes the flu, are exempt from liability. They want this in the childhood schedule too. Maybe, maybe. Um, Sounds plausible. Elizabeth Marie says, are you shilling for bid? I'm guessing big pharma, bro. Shilling? Is this like a Urban Dictionary? I got to look it up. Because I know shilling is money and it's a form of money. Like covert advertising? No, dude. No. I'm just finally covering this topic because so many people have been bringing it to my attention that I decided to just cover it. So no, absolutely not. I don't give a shit. I don't have a horse in this race. But great question. You never know. Subsu73 says, I love listening to you. Thank you, DUI guy. Well, thank you, Subsu73. Thank you for being there. Susan B says, Larry, my husband came down with villain Barr syndrome. And then she says, no, sorry, Gillian Barr. Gillian Barr syndrome after his first shot, paralyzed. Whoa. Paralyzed for 2 months. Extremely rare disease. Look it up. I shall. I shall. That sounds absolutely terrifying. I am such a boomer vital awakening. Have you not? I'm the most boomer millennials will ever have amongst their ranks. I am like an old soul. I'm like in my head, I'm like 97 years old. You know, I'm cranky. I'm just like, I crack jokes. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me. It's like I already have kids and grandkids, neither of which I have. But like, it feels like that in my head. I'm such a fucking boomer. Um, so yeah, no question. I think everybody knows that by now. I even play chess. Yeah, that's true. That is true. I'm a decent-ish chess player. I am ranked among like the top 85% chess players, even though my rank is not that high. I'm like 1600 online, you know? And apparently that's still like, I think it's like more than 90% actually. The pool is increasing. Chess has exploded yet again. I thought chess was like holy hell in 2020, like it was a boom. But I think because of Levi Rosman, whose channel literally went viral over like the last couple of months on YouTube, December, January, he went from like 1.7 million subscribers to like almost three. Like he almost doubled in subscribers. Like doubling, going from like 100 to 200 is one thing, 100,000 to 200,000. He went from like 1.5 million to almost 3 million in like 2 months. It's literally insane. No updates on the Hans Magnus, although I don't know if you've been following Magnus. Magnus has been suffering. He's off his game. He lost 2 games in a row, and that hasn't happened in like 7 or 8 years at the Tata Steel Championship, if y'all are following. All my nerds out there, salute nerds! All right. Julio says vaccines should prevent things, not 17 boosters later and you still get the virus. I know. I never got the booster. So I got vaccine 1, vaccine 2. It was like April 2021, May 2021. And then I was good until May 2022. So 1 year, my body was good. I got COVID when I went to the Johnny Depp trial. I recovered and been okay since. It's been 7 months, 8 months. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. We're going into month 9. So my antibodies are probably all dead. The real Anthony Fauci book. Is that a thing? I do not get Botox. No. This is all natural, baby. This is all natural. I do not do anything to myself. I don't trim. I don't do eyelashes. All I do is shave and do like the occasional cream like once a year. I like to get facials. No, not those kind of facials, you perverts. But I like to get facials every once in a while. Those are fun. He's not really a boomer. You've met me, Amy. What are you talking about? Are you serious right now? Come on. You know me. I'm the boomerest millennial. Like, boomers look at me and they go, wow, what a fucking boomer. Like, that's how boomer I am. Where is Zinnia? No sé. I don't know. Thank you, Femme Natal. She says I have gorgeous teeth. Ooh. Okay. Well, that's all I have to say about how was the mock trial this weekend? You guys, I am toast. I swear to God. It is 9:00 here on the Eastern Seaboard, and I'm telling you, I am dead. It has literally been 19 hours from like every day, 10 hours today, 9 hours yesterday, or vice versa, whatever. Who's counting? Obviously me. But including like going through the motions, listening to their arguments, et cetera, plus the breaks, plus I had to listen to the bloody training 4 times because each time we have at least one new judge and he has to go over the training because otherwise that judge doesn't know what to do, which is fair. But it's like, yeah, I'm an honorary boomer. Beta males get facials. I love it. I love it. Julio, it's an RFK Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. book. Also, he did a documentary about it. It's shocking, to be honest. I was shooketh. Also, I'm not anti-vax, but I'm big anti-big pharma not being accountable for their actions. That's fair. Mr. Larry, you're so funny. You're so fine. You're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Larry. Hey, Larry. Or no, wait. You can't see it. Fuck. Here. Yeah. I did not wait a minute. Amy Goodheart did go to her channel right now. Go subscribe to Amy Goodheart. She did a show on her channel about Gen Xers. That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, you guys. I'm gonna go see. My food should have been here like half an hour ago, so I'm gonna go check on it because I'm starving. I'm literally. They fed us. They fed us breakfast. They fed us lunch. I'm happy, but it's like past dinner time, so I am absolutely starving. We're gonna keep doing daily shows. We're gonna keep doing daily shorts. I had one ready yesterday, but I wasn't able to correct it until today. And my guy is in a different time zone, so the short's not going to be ready until tomorrow. But we're going to keep pumping away. Daily lives, daily shorts, and holy hell, 1.3 million views on my channel collectively. When I normally average about 240,000, so about 120 a day, the last 2 days, I averaged 700,000 views on my channel. Like, I calculated it. I'm a numbers guy. Numbers fascinate me. So just for frame of reference, normally every second of the clock, I get 2.5 views, 2.5, 2.5 views, 2.5, 2.5, right? Now, as we speak, it's like 11, 11.5, 11.5, 12, 11, 11.5, 12, 12, 12. Just to put it in perspective, it is absolutely bonkers. I don't know what is going on, but I will take it to the bank. So thank you all for joining me. I had so much fun. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you all in the next video tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Have a good rest of your whatever the hell is left of this weekend. Bye-bye.